it was a busy night, and the chef turned to me and just started ripping into me. "You suck. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. Why the fuck do you even do this?" That was
trying to link up with you. I don't even know how you came on my radar. I don't know if it was Philip. I don't know if it was me catching your videos on Instagram, the running world, the cooking world. I'm not sure what it was, but do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a connection with Philip Spear and the Commodore Run Club. I definitely learned about you through my wife, who's in recovery. She's just 2 years sober now. Yeah.
Congratulations. What's her name?
Christine.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she's my hero. She's amazing. But she was working at Sage Recovery.
Okay.
And she had told me about you and your story, and we watched your documentary on the ultra and training for that. And, you know, she'd said that y'all had worked, you had worked with Sage and, you know, working with clients of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So, just learned your story through that. And then, you know, once you started the podcast, started following, and then, like the running and all that kind of stuff, definitely
gotcha.
Connected through that.
How's running in your world? Like, what type of, is it just kind of a thing you do? Is it a salvation thing for you?
For me, it definitely started as just a thing that I do. It still kind of is. I'm very inconsistent with it right now between work and just getting the time to do it. For me, it definitely started as I hated doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's great." And, you know, you clear your head and all that kind of stuff. And I started doing it. And the first couple of times I ran, I'm like, all right, let me just do this, like, get it over with, because it sucks. Right. And then I did start falling in love with truly clearing your head. And, you know, I definitely deal with a lot of anxieties and overthink a lot of things in my life. Mm-hmm. So it was a good outlet for me just to clear my head. And it is one of those things where you are legitimately just thinking about putting one foot in front of the other. Mm-hmm. And I love the runs where you tell yourself, like, all right, I'm good. But then you're like, no, I'm just going to push a little bit farther. I'm just going to go one more mile or anything like that. And it's really a good litmus to just test yourself and right. like push yourself to a little bit more than you think you can do.
Right. I'm starting to like understand now as I get older, the things I don't want to do are the things I need to do.
100%. Yeah.
Everything I don't want to do that I'm trying to talk myself out of are the things that are actually the most important.
Absolutely.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
But I remember my friend Penny, when I very first started running, she told me a quote. And she said, "You'll never regret going for a run, and you'll always regret not going for a run." And it could not be more true.
100%.
If you don't run, then you don't understand. But if you start running and you catch that bug, man, it's something you start to realize is a daily medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very dual for me because, like, I've never been good at, like, meditation. I can't just sit down.
I'm terrible at it.
I can't do it. It's not my thing. I'm sure I could if I actually put significant effort into it, but I hate it.
Yeah.
Now, I can go for a run and completely clear my head and not think and hit that meditative state, or I can go on a run and that's where I could work out all my problems. If I'm being hot-headed about something, by the time I'm done, I'm level-headed. I've thought through things in a way that I can't do just sitting here regularly.
Absolutely. I've definitely had some times in my life, whether it's work or personal, and like you said, very hot-headed or just very emotional. And I instantly know, like, go on a run and you'll feel different afterwards. And it's so true. You just start, like, really thinking about, you know, all right, is this that big of a deal? Am I just kind of, you know, inflating this, or am I reacting this way because, you know, in this moment, sure, it sucks, but in the long term, is it really going to affect me, et cetera, et cetera? But it's exactly like you said. You get a chance to just really think through things.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with you, obviously. I'm familiar with your content, what you do online and everything, what you actually do. But for those listening who may not know, do you want to give them kind of a brief overview of who you are, what you're up to?
Yeah, so I'm a chef by trade. I've been cooking for going on 20 years now. And, you know, I've cooked in very high level, high intense kitchens. And I think it was right after I moved to Austin just over 2 years ago. Um, Started seeing an influx of, people cooking on social media. And I definitely think when I first started cooking, kitchens were an avenue for people to make a living for themselves because they didn't really have anything else. I always kind of call the kitchen like the island of misfit toys. Um, it's a lot of people that don't know what they want to do with their life, dropped out of college like myself, didn't really feel like they had a future. And it's one of those things where we kind of call ourselves pirates at a point where you just like, all right, cool, like I'll bring you on. So when I first started cooking, it was definitely not this glamorous, like chef's a rock star type things. It's just like, all right, this is a living and, we'll make do. But as in the last couple of years, for sure, it's definitely turned into the rock star thing where, the Food Network and, all the Netflix shows and all that kind of stuff. But then started.
My wife watches them all.
They're good. Like they're good. And it's exciting. It's exciting romanticizing the like fun and exciting parts of cooking.
Mm-hmm.
But at the bare bones of it, like it's brutal. It's a brutal career. It's a brutal living. And I definitely saw an avenue of, okay, I can show off like the cool side of it with the social media stuff. So I saw all these people gaining these huge followings, and I don't want to knock their hustle or what they do, but I started seeing it and I was like, oh, I'm very talented at what I do. So let me just try. And it simply started like the first video I ever did was just like some dinner I cooked for myself. It was like skinless chicken breast with rice and like some sauteed kale. Like it was for me like a very simple meal.
Right.
But it got a couple hundred views, and of course, like my siblings were like, "This is amazing. You keep doing it." And I'm like, "Okay, let me just keep doing it." And then it started picking up some traction, and for me, it was also tell a story about who I am a little bit. I don't talk in my videos. One, as I'm on a podcast, I hate the sound of my voice. But I didn't want to be one of these people that was like sitting there talking about like all the things. I really wanted it to be about the food and then the music I play along with it. I'm a huge fan of hip hop, so I was just like, let me just be authentic to who I am and just play some like hip hop music. And sure, there's been some like trendy stuff, but more often than not, we've talked about it where it was like deep cut, like 90s hip hop like songs. And sometimes people are like, I watch this video just for the music. Like, I don't care about your cooking. Like, and that's fine.
That's what caught my ear.
Yeah, exactly. And, not everyone's there's definitely some things that I've done where people don't understand it, but there's also things that I've done where I made mistakes. And it's another thing about, it was something that I was a little hesitant to start doing it because I'm a very introverted person. I am, not one to put myself out there. So like coming on podcasts is like this morning I'm like hyping myself up because I'm like, oh man, I got to talk and like talk about myself. But starting the videos, I'm putting myself out there. And when I first started doing it, I had some people that, would shit on me and they were like, this is terrible. And social media is a great thing, but it's also a terrible thing where it's just like, it can be so toxic and then you get sucked into it. And at first I definitely got into like arguments with people where I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And like all this back and forth. And I was having a back and forth with one guy, and it was kind of like the moment of clarity where he just said, he's like, listen, you're putting yourself out there. You just need to be ready for like interactions like this. And like, you need to handle it a little better. And, I could easily be like, go fuck yourself. But for me, it definitely got to a point where I was just like, yeah, I kind of need to just kind of brush that stuff off. And I have people tell me to this day, because I still get people in the comments that are just saying whatever the fuck they want to say.
How are you hating on a dude just sitting there cooking? Like, what are you going to hate about? Are they hating about how you're cooking it, or what are they saying?
There's definitely times with that. There's definitely like certain techniques that I do, and there's chefs that'll be like, you're doing that wrong, or why would you do that? And, to each their own.
Yeah, right.
again, I'm confident in the skills that I've acquired, but I'm not perfect.
That's what
I've
makes it yours too.
exactly. But I've definitely done videos where I've knowingly done something, and I'm like, well, that is not something I would like to serve to a guest, and people were like, oh, like refire that, and it's like, yeah, no shit. Like if I was in a restaurant setting and I had more of that product, of course I wouldn't serve it to a paying customer, but I'm also paying for these videos out of my pocket, and it's like I'm eating it at the end of the day. It's I think the most comments I get is I have 5 dogs, so my house is chaos all the time. But I have 2 dogs that'll like jump up and they're like, "Oh, that's disgusting." I'm like, "You're not eating the food.
Right.
Like, who cares?"
Right.
Like, so you just get a lot of different comments of just people just want to feel like they're important, or just simply like internet trolls that are just like doing it just to get a rise out of you.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. You usually click on their profile or something,
And
like
it's
that,
0 followers, and there's no profile picture, and
Right.
you're just like, you're just doing this
Right.
just because, like, this is your personality.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say the way you're explaining about how when you got into social media, like you're definitely way farther ahead than I am. But this whole past year, getting more involved with it and kind of learning the ways of it all. But you start off and you're, oh yeah, I want followers, I want engagement, I want this, I want that, and I had people, they're like, all right, you got to look at what's trending. You got to look at what's trending. I don't give a shit about what's trending. I don't give about what song is trending. That's not while I'm doing it. And I tried playing that game where, okay, this is what these people are doing and all that. I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
It makes me want to put my phone away. I don't want to do it. But when I started leaning more into the authenticity, which is, this is the music I listen to. This is how I talk. This video actually represents how I am on a day-to-day basis. That's when people start really coming and you start getting the traction you want. Mm-hmm. So everybody I talk to, I'm like, just lean into being you.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, lean in hard.
Yeah.
If you say something, say it loud.
Like,
yeah. But that's the only way I've been able to find that. And then I don't really care what anybody has to say. Sometimes I wish I'd catch some haters so they'd blow that comment section up, but haven't got it
yet. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. It's just all about being authentic. And I say it all the time in restaurants, and I relate a lot of things to cooking because it's kind of my life. But people like a story.
Yep.
People want to hear a story, and people know when a story is not authentic.
Yes.
And sure, there's, even outside of like content creators that do cooking stuff, every walk of life, the fitness, the the recovery, everyone, there's definitely players in the game that are painting a false narrative. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it because like, oh, I'll gain more followers and all that. And it's like you said, like some people, like they can do it and they can be fine with it. But like you said, if I started getting to a point where I'm playing like Sabrina Carpenter with my music, I'm like, all right, what am I doing? Like, this isn't me. Like, I don't enjoy this. So why would I do it just because it's going to gain me a bigger following or anything like that?
So I remember when I was first trying to connect with you, I was trying to catch up with you for a run and all that. I knew you were a runner and everything. And then you and I hopped on a call and we were able to talk a little bit more in depth. And I realized you and I had a lot more in common than I realized. Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of touching on the mental health aspect with you. Where, if you don't mind going into it, but like, if you could take me back, like, where did that become a thing? Like, what did you feel? How old were you? How did it hit you?
Man, so I mean, I've been dealing with anxiety and depression my whole life. It just runs in my family. I have immediate family members that are diagnosed bipolar. I have family members that attempted suicide and all that kind of stuff. And when I was younger, there was definitely not as much of an awareness of mental health and all that kind of area. But for me, I think it really started becoming like not only something I noticed, but like something that like I heavily prioritize a couple years ago. It definitely peaked when my wife was going through her addiction. And realizing that I do, have mental health issues, and it's okay. I think for the longest time, um, I tried to avoid it. I tried to bury it. I tried to do all the things that are not good that like everyone tells you like you shouldn't do. Um, and also, I think the pandemic was another like pivotal moment for me. Um, I was laid off and I was actually unemployed for 7 months of the pandemic. So I had nothing but time to think. And during the pandemic, I definitely leaned into drinking very heavily. Getting laid off and not being able to do the job that I've been doing for a good majority of my life, and I've dedicated years to my craft. I definitely went through like
Yeah.
a phase of like freaking out, like,
Right.
well, what am I gonna do
And
now?
it's very much your identity.
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't know what I was gonna do, and um, for me, I definitely was that very typical like mask the pain with either drinking or when I was coming up in kitchens. Um, I never had like the craziest tolerance for alcohol, but I definitely was not shy of like coke and pills and like all that kind of stuff. So it was super easy just to be like, oh, this feels great. I get to like hide all these like really shitty feelings that I have with a pill that just like makes me feel chill, and I get to just kind of get away for a while. But during the pandemic, yeah, again, like I said, definitely leaned heavy into the drinking for a good portion of it. And then I finally, I think it was even after coming out of the pandemic as well. I still drank and I'd still had a very unhealthy relationship with it. I never think I was someone who was like super addicted to it and I like needed it every single day and I would go through withdrawals, but I definitely didn't have a healthy relationship with it. In kitchens, drugs and alcohol are everywhere. Everywhere. It's, you get done super late and then you're going to the bar and you're just blacking out with your friends and then you go in and do the same thing the next day. But I definitely got to a point where my dad, who deals with depression, had a long conversation with me about it. He decided to stop drinking for his mental health. One of my sisters did the same thing. So I got to a point where, it's hard enough dealing with depression. And once you talk to people that are like, hey, like once I stop drinking, it helps. It doesn't get rid of it. It's something that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. But it's a big help. So, going on 3 years, I stopped drinking.
Let's go.
Yeah. It was kind of an easy decision. I just got to a point where I was like, what am I doing with my life? And why am I setting myself up for failure with my mental health? So yeah, it was just one of those things too. And also at the same time, like I want to be a supportive husband and support my wife through her recovery. I think it would be pretty fucked up if she's going through recovery and I'm sitting there having beers.
No, that's awesome with you because you don't, in all honesty, like I work in recovery all the time. Like you don't see that much.
Yeah.
Me as an addict or an alcoholic, I would never want my wife to change anything about what she does. And I'm sure your wife is the same way. Like, if her drinking makes me feel some sort of way, it's my job to remove myself from the situation or figure that out on my own. Why is it bothering me? But the fact in solidarity that, you know what I mean, especially with the past you've had, mental health wise and everything like that, but to stand in solidarity with your wife, I can only imagine how that made her feel at that time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been good to like, and again, I don't want to say that I'm sharing like a journey with her. Like her journey is a much more, triumphant one than mine. And maybe that's not fair, but again, what she's overcome has been amazing to see and be a part of and to walk that path with her. But at the same time, she's had to do
Yeah.
the work herself, and she was the one who was like, I'm gonna do this. So yeah, it's been nice to be supportive in that way as well. Um, but that, of course, like I said, it only helps. I still deal with depression, and there's times where it gets really bad, like really bad. I've never gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself, like I'm done with this. Um, but I definitely have those times where it gets really dark, and I say to myself, like, it'd probably be easier if I didn't wake up tomorrow. Like, just like, this is just, it's all shit.
Yeah.
And just like, what's the point? And like having those very, very dark moments. So I think for me, a huge help has been therapy and just talking. Just, you know, I definitely have days where I wake up and I turn to my wife and I'm just like, I'm sad. I'm really sad right now. She's like, what is it? I'm just like, it's just me. But I just want to talk about it rather than internalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to even just say those words. Like, I'm very sad right now. But the more I talk about it, the more I realize that it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay. But realizing that there are people to like help with that. And therapy's been a huge help for me. But then also just connecting with people that know what you're going through and relating on that term, because it's always good to know that you're not alone in it. And I think it's very easy to just be like, this is how I feel. It's terrible. No one knows what I'm going through. And it's not the truth at all.
Right. So for years I bounced around after the military. In between me being in the military, I bounced around for years, and my first go-to always was to go get a job at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always be a waiter. I could speak well, you know what I mean? I could always made really good money being a waiter like that. Always knew the first people I needed to make friends with was the back of the house, because they were who took care of me, and all
Right.
I had good food at the end of the night and all that. But man, looking back at just the culture of working in the restaurant industry and stuff like that, like, if you think about it, just unfortunately the way it is, it's a breeding ground for mental health or substance abuse or anything like that. You're up late every night. Most of us, you work late, you go out late, you sleep late, so you don't really see much of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that stuff. And so yeah, I don't know there was ever a restaurant where we didn't hang around afterwards to drink or go somewhere else to drink and do all that. So to see what Philip's done with Commodore Run Club and shift to post shift is it's incredible.
Yeah.
To change or to attempt to try to change an entire industry and get a movement like that going is incredible. But dude, for you, I mean, to be in the midst of that and that to be your career, it's not like you're just working at a restaurant. Like, this is your career.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that you're able to stand up and like notice all these things and do something about it and go against that whole culture is incredible, dude.
I mean, I don't want to. I appreciate that. I don't want to sit here and be like I'm the greatest.
It's difficult. It's tough.
It's difficult. It's very difficult. And like you said, it's a breeding ground for just mental health issues. But not only just that, but it's been like disregarded for a very long time in the industry, because at the end of the day, we're providing a service for people. And, I don't want to say like doctors have difficult jobs, surgeons have difficult jobs. Like, we're just cooking food. And like, that's something I always try and tell the team when there's like, it's a high stress job. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we need to work fast and we need to work, as close to perfect as possible. 'Cause guests are coming in and spending a lot of money on, food. And so we need to work fast. We need to work as, close to perfect as possible. And it's go, go, go. And, guests are coming in and it's not that they don't give a shit about you, but it's, they don't know you're going through a depressed state. They don't know you're dealing with high levels of anxiety. They don't know you're, an alcoholic or a drug addict or anything like that. there to have a good time. And so it's easy in the restaurants, definitely coming up for me to just, be like, come to work, shut the fuck up, do your job, and then leave. And while you're at the job, kitchens are, again, like you see it in like all the like TV shows and stuff like that, like Gordon Ramsay, like just screaming and yelling at people. And like he's at a stage now where it's definitely dramatized because that's what people expect. But, back in his day when he was running the day to day, like that was legit. Like that was 100% legit, like screaming at people, like grabbing them, throwing them, like physically like hitting them and like throwing plates and stuff like that. Like that's the culture of like high end fine dining, which is what I've immersed myself into. It's, I always remember it. I was cooking and I had a really rough night. It was a busy night, and the chef turned to me and just started ripping into me. You suck. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. Why the fuck do you even do this? And just like all this stuff. And I'm sitting there and like a lot of cooks on the line, and I'm just like, tears are trickling down my face. But I'm also like trying to hide it. I'm like, don't cry in front of everyone. But no one wanted to look at me because he just like ripped into me. Like ripped into me. And that was normal. Like, and any other job, like people are like, I'm out. Like, I don't have to deal with this shit. But in kitchens,
that or you're in the military.
Yeah, exactly. In kitchens, it's like, oh, well, this person's so talented and I'm learning a lot. And it becomes a little bit of like a Stockholm syndrome where it's just like, well, I'm learning a lot and they're great and they're talented. So, and they just yell at me. It's okay. But like, it builds traumas. And I definitely still deal with that. I have, bosses now who I'm sitting there like kind of like metaphorically like, when are you going to yell at me? And they're like, I'm not going to yell at you. And it's fine. Like, it's okay. And, I just tell them like, I'm just, a little traumatized from old jobs. So, it's definitely one of those industries where it's changing for the better. But like when I started coming up in kitchens, it was like, I don't give a shit about your mental health. You're here to do a job and you're here to do it at the pace that I tell you to do it. And if you're not, you're going to hear about it. So it's a tough one.
It's wild. I mean, I don't want to say I can see both sides, but like I know in the military, I know what that does to you. You know what I mean? Like when you're going to the military, that's exactly what you need. You need basic training. You need somebody to tear you completely down and build you back up to the way you need to be, to have your mind right to go do something like that. Anybody that's been in a poppin' restaurant on a Friday or Saturday night and they see the chaos going on, like you just see that. Imagine being back in it over hot grills and stoves and all that. So I get why they need the efficiency, especially when people are coming in paying, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for whatever they're eating. So I get that. But when did that start? Like, there had to have been the beginning of like, hey, this is how I'm going to run this kitchen. And then that just went everywhere. That was the culture. Like, how did that all start?
I mean, I truly think it started like, so there's a chef, Auguste Escoffier. He's like, I don't even like 1800s, like French chef.
The OG.
He started the brigade system, which is very modeled after the military. And it's why there is like some parallels to like high-end kitchens in the military, because there is a chain of command and you don't break that chain of command and you do as you're told and you follow directions and do the job. And granted, it's much different. Like again, I always tell like cooks when there's like a high stress situation where they're like, I feel like they're breaking down. I'm like, we're just cooking food. No one's going to die. So there's that difference. But, once the brigade system started, I think it was probably just that. And it's when, dining became, again, I think fine dining is definitely moving away from it. But back in the day, it was the white tablecloths and the chandeliers and like the servers are wearing like tuxedos and all that kind of stuff. But there's an expectation. And, it comes with then like awards and accolades started coming, like James Beard Awards and the Michelin Guide and all these things. So, and at the same time, as a chef, you're putting yourself on the dish. Like that's you. And, we work 12 hours is like a chill day. Like I've had jobs where I was there 20 hours a day. Like, so it is your life. It is you. And I think the best way to sum it up, again, like, not the greatest way to talk to someone, but it was something that years later when I started running kitchens and creating dishes, I understood it, but it still doesn't make it okay. But a chef turned to me once and he asked, you know, when someone makes a truly great song, like a phenomenal song, yeah, and then someone comes along and does a cover of it and really does a shitty job with it, yeah, that's what you're doing to my food. Like, you know, in the moment, I was like, God damn. And everyone around was like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
But then I started creating dishes and like putting my own food on plates. And I never said that to a cook because I remember how it made me feel.
But you get it.
But I saw them plating up a dish and I'm like, that's not, you're doing it wrong. And so I understood it. Again, doesn't make it okay, but you're spending a large chunk of your day and your life doing something, and you're putting a lot of work and a lot of effort into it. So when someone's not doing it the way you want it done, it's easy just to freak out and scream and yell and go off of emotions and just be like, why can't you get this? Right. So I think it's like, it's been, you know, hundreds of years for kitchens to just be like very high intense places where people are screaming and yelling, and that's just kind of been the culture. And, you know, luckily there's a lot of chefs now that are changing their kitchens for the better.
Yeah. You and I had a conversation before when we were talking about the mental health thing, and I was sharing you a little bit about what I was going through, and I've struggled with depression since I was a kid. I remember when I was 14 years old, my mom took me to a mental health place, and they said that I was on the they had told her basically like how bad it was. I didn't have like suicidal thoughts or anything like that. Never really dealt with anxiety. And then I went into the military, and I think, you know, all that, then drug addiction happens. And so it just magnified all that. And then, I got sober and I discovered running, and I talk about it at nearly every episode. Running was the best medicine. A lot of that stuff started to subside for me. It didn't go away, but it got more manageable and better. And then like 6 months ago or 4 months, whatever it was, a couple months ago, it just came back, like it smacked me in the face. And I remember sitting there trying to talk to my wife and explain it, and much like yours, she's like, well, why? What's going on? And I'm like, I literally can't point to a thing of why I feel. Everything is great.
Yeah.
Podcast is great. Fucking relationships are great. Or marriage is great. Everything's great. But the world feels like shit right now, and I just don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
And so I know that, you know, what does it look like for you? And I'm not asking you to take me through a traumatizing thing, but like, let's say you wake up one morning, like, what is that feeling for you? And then if you could describe it, just so people at home are like, oh, I feel like that too. And if how you feel like that, and then what do you do now tools wise? How do you pull yourself out of it?
So, yeah, I mean, when it's really bad, I mean, just waking up is a struggle. Just getting out of bed is just like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to lay in bed a little bit longer and, you know, delay being a part of the world. And then...
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't want to be a part of it.
Very good way to put it.
And I'm very irritable. Like, I'm always, like, on edge. And like I said, like, my anxiety and my depression are, like, hand in hand. So, you know, I definitely have moments where I'm like, I don't feel like I can breathe. And, you know, going out into the world, I deal with social anxiety, like, pretty bad too. You know, it's one of those things where if the wife and I go to Target on like a Sunday and it's busy, I get to a point where like I get like sensory overload, and I'm just like sitting around just like kind of like, she's like, you okay? And, you know, of course I'm always like, I'm fine. And it's just my way of deflecting. But, you know, it's again where it's just one of those things where I just want to like run away and like go away and hide and like just not be anywhere near it. But it's also just this feeling of like, I don't know if it's like doom, but it's just like you said, like everything could be good in life, but it's just like, man, everything sucks.
Yeah.
Like the sun isn't like as bright as it needs to be, or I'm just not like nothing's good. Like nothing is good, and it's like you said, like there's definitely those moments, and it's not like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm gonna end my life. I've never had those thoughts, but it's definitely thoughts of just like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? And I think those are like the moments where I'm like, shit, like I need to like address this.
That's the wake up right there.
Yeah. So for me, again, therapy, and it's hard because my anxiety will keep me from doing the things I know I need to do. So I went like a long period of time where I wasn't going to therapy. My wife and I go to couples therapy. Our relationship and our marriage is great, but again, just figuring out better ways to communicate. And something that's helped me is, again, like when I have my social anxiety, rather than being like, our therapist is like, how about you just tell her how you're feeling rather than like, it's okay. And then, telling her like, I'm not okay right now. I might have like a clock starting on like how much longer I can be here. So we've been, which has been great. It's made our marriage even stronger. I think people always kind of equate couples therapy with like, oh, it's bad. Like it's really bad. And we started doing it because we're like, we want this to be stronger and better. And, at the end of the day too, like the things that we've gone through in our past, we just wanted to work through them. We never wanted anything to like fester and linger around. And we always wanted open lines of communication. But I say all that to say, while we were doing that, I was like, all right, well, I'm seeing this therapist with Christine, and, I'll put a hold on my own personal, mental health journey. And as of recently, I started going back to him because, I mean, even the last couple of weeks, I've hit like that depressed state. And so like getting back to therapy has been huge for me. Because there's just so many traumas that I don't realize that I have, where, I'm talking to my therapist in my last session, and it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to compartmentalize this and just like kind of, he's like, don't you think like you just like compartmentalizing and flying under the radar probably isn't great? He's like, you're just trying to like make your feelings not important. And I've always been the type of person that I'm like, I'm okay. Like I don't need to burden anyone else with my problems. So I've always just hit them. So just like talking through, like, it's okay. Like your feelings are valid. You're allowed to feel the way you feel, and you're not a burden to anyone if you tell them like, I'm not okay.
Right.
And I think like something that's helped me a lot recently is I always like, it was like it was an actors round table thing, and Tom Hanks was talking, and he's just like, it was the thing where he said, he's like, this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. And I always try to remember that, because he even said it too. He's like, the good times and the bad times. So just remembering that, like, this will pass. Mm-hmm. Like it comes in waves, and the good times happen too. And I'm like, everything's good. But then I tell myself, I'm like, this is going to pass too. Yeah. And you got to be ready to deal with the bad times. I think something that I've done recently, and it definitely caught on, it was definitely trending because of like Rogan and like fitness people, but like I try and cold plunge every single day. It's again, it's one of those things where it's like, I do not want to do this. Right. Like I do every single day. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to do it. But then I do it, and then I get out. And one, like the science has come out that it just helps boost like mood and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to do it. Good, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And then it just helps me think of like doing that with all the other things in my life of like, all right, well, I don't want to go to therapy. Yeah, but you're going to go to therapy. All right, I don't want to go out into the world because I'm depressed. Yeah, but you're going to go out and be a person and like talk to people. Right. And it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how many parallels I could draw from running than the regular world, because I remember when I was running ultra marathons, I'd come to the realization, and I've heard the saying 1,000 times, but I come to the realization the only way out of this is through it.
Yeah.
Like the only way I'm going to get done to this race is like, okay, I could sit here and I'm tired. I just went 60 miles. I'm going to go ahead and walk now for a little bit. If I'm walking, I'm taking longer. Like the only way I'm ever going to get done is just to go.
Yeah.
And so that's what I drew on when I'm going through my rough time. Like I understand there's no amount of me laying around, you know what I mean, feeling like this is going to change anything. It's not like I'm just going to pop my head up and be like, oh, I feel great.
Yeah, I'm amazing.
It takes me getting my ass up out of bed, but years of my life were spent just sitting there laying in bed, waiting for the methadone clinic to open up, watching bullshit on Netflix for years. Like I didn't do shit, but just depressed, couldn't pull myself out of bed. But now, luckily, like going through these experiences in life, it's like now I can pull on these tools. Now I know immediately, like, all right, let me look. All right, I haven't been around community in a minute. I need to go be around people. I need to go to a run group. I need to start running, cold plunge, something like that to get me going again. But it's like now, at least I know that's what I need.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, you know, I got said it a gajillion times, but get out of the military, they diagnosed me with everything under the sun and slid me 15 bottles of pills. I tried the pills. It didn't work. I'm not saying people shouldn't take pills. If you need them, you should absolutely take them. For me, it just wasn't the answer.
Yeah.
I didn't get what I needed from them. They didn't get me happy. It didn't get me sober. I was still a miserable fuck. So physical activity ended up being what I needed. That's transformed my life. And so a lot of the people I talked to, and I think we spoke about it too, the one woman I had on the podcast, Dr. Abby, like this woman, she got her doctorate degree at like 21 years old. She's the real life Doogie Howser. She's from England, and the United States gave her green card because she's in the top 1% in the world of human behavior. So she understands human behavior. And we talked about it on the show, and she said, you know, you can't let these thoughts or whatever control your actions. Embrace how you feel, but don't let it control the actions. So you might feel like shit, but don't make it keep you out of, sort of like fake the behavior. Get up, go out, go do something. And it's so true.
Yeah.
And so just trying to get people to understand. There was a gentleman, we used to live in apartments up North Austin, and I would leave every morning. I'd leave at 4 a.m. for the gym every day, and I'd go walking out. It'd always be dark. And I'd come out, and this gentleman lived across the way, and he would usually be standing on his back porch. He had his headphones on. He was a gamer. You could see his two screens, and they're all lit up, and the room was dark. And he'd be out there chain smoking cigarettes, and he had like 30 bottles of Dr. Pepper everywhere, and those were his cans. And he never looked up at me once.
Yeah.
We lived there for years. He never looked up at me once, never nodded, never waved. It was just like head down. He looked to me depressed.
Oh, 100%.
And I just wanted to grab him and be like, bro, come for a run with me.
Yeah.
And like, just come to the gym. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I promise you're not going to be sitting on your deathbed and you were like, man, am I sure glad I played all those video games.
100%.
Maybe he was making millions of dollars. I have no idea. I'm assuming all this.
It's wild that that's like a living now these days.
So, yeah. Yeah, he's probably sitting there laughing at me.
Yeah, no, right.
Bro.
No, but it's true. That's something I need to be careful of as well. I definitely have a lot of addictive personalities, and video games is, I mean, I still play video games, but I always need to like remember like.
What's your game?
Right now it's Call of Duty.
Okay.
Yeah, just like everyone else, but yeah, it's exactly that, where it's like, it's another form of escaping. Where like, again, when I was like depressed and coming up in kitchens, it was like, oh, pills and like painkillers, like, cool, I get to escape for a little bit. Video games are the same way, because you're just like in an alternate reality, and you're just like, oh, I'm doing this other thing, and I'm avoiding all my feelings. So yeah, that's another one I definitely need to be like cognizant of. Yeah, it's like easy to just fall into that as well.
I can't say enough about couples therapy.
Yeah,
I feel like it was like TRT for my marriage. It was like we were good, but when I got on it, we were better.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The communication aspect is huge.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I never thought of it this way, but you know, you could always improve your communication.
Always.
So what I didn't realize was, okay, there's certain things my wife says that as soon as she says them, I see red. You know, not really, but it's
it's like, damn it.
Right. It's not the information, it's just the way it's presented. And so then I started realizing there was things that I do, the way I say it to her, and so it's like, oh, I can still get across the same message. For her, I have to say it in a different way, and then there's no issue.
Yeah.
Like, that was huge for our marriage. We've only been married a couple years, and that, like, we don't really fight at all, but that took care of any of the little bickering we did have is gone.
Oh, 100%. Our, like, bickering and arguments. Like, same thing. Like, we haven't gotten in fights, but you bicker, you argue.
Right.
That is like almost completely gone. Because, it just gives you the tools to properly communicate. And, a big one is just communicating your feelings. And because, no matter what, your feelings are your feelings and they're valid. I could say something to you and, I could say it to you in a way where you misconstrue it. And it's like, that's not what I meant. But if you're like, yeah, but this is how it made me feel, that's 100% factual.
Yeah.
So feelings are just something that need to be communicated and not disregarded. Because I think people, more often than not, get super defensive and like, oh, it's not what I meant. It's like, cool, but like, this is how I feel. Like, you made me feel away. And
you must go to the same therapist. It's literally all the same shit I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So, no, it, like you said, it's been like TRT. It's just been like, holy shit, like, we are super strong now.
Right.
And it's amazing. And I think, again, people kind of look at it as just like, oh, your marriage is terrible. It's like, no, I'm just trying to make it the best.
Right.
Like, this is my wife, but it's also my best friend in the world. And I want this to be forever, ever, ever as strong as it possibly can be. So why wouldn't it's like going to the gym or like, just like, all right, I'm trying to get stronger in the gym. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with your relationships?
Exactly. And I mean, look at the divorce rates.
It's insane.
Better start doing something. Because the numbers ain't in our favor.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as addiction or mental health.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are not in our favor. So when I was originally scrolling, and I originally came up on your page, the music is what caught me immediately. And I was like, who is this dude? Because it was some... Number one, we live in Texas, so you don't hear a lot of boom bap.
No.
Up north type rap.
Yeah.
So I caught that. I'm like, yo, who is this guy? So where are you originally from?
Philadelphia.
All right, you're from Philly. All right,
From Philly.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Philly guys. We got two Super Bowl champions in the studio right now.
Let's go.
So who were your early ones that got you hooked on rap?
I mean, early ones for me, it's kind of like everyone's Pac, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, and then coming up in Philly, like The Roots and Beanie Siegel and Freeway. And then as I started getting older, I started getting into more like, Common and Tribe Called Quest and Talib Kweli, the more thoughtful hip hop. But yeah, for me, one, like just growing up in Philly, you're just around it. You're just around that culture. But it's exactly that. It's culture. It's a form of expression. And it's just funny seeing so many people are like, it's not music. I don't get it. It's like, it's not for you. Shut up.
Yeah.
Like, it's a true art form. Just like the gift of talking, but like rhyming with it. And, just the story of it. It's origination is like the DJs. The DJs were the guys. And it's like they were spinning the records, and then all of a sudden some guys were like, oh, I'll just say some shit on top of it. And then like that turned into like a whole thing. But just like the whole hip hop culture is just something that's just always captivated me for sure.
Do you remember some of the first couple songs you heard or like the first album you got that like hooked you?
I think Ready to Die was probably the first album. 36 Chambers was another one. But I think Biggie was like the first one.
The guy?
Yeah, where it was just like his flow and how he just weaved in and out of beats and just like his swagger with it. Like just everything was just like, that's awesome. Like, he's just like flat out like, that's awesome. And again, like Pac's another one where he's just like, Biggie's like this swagger and he's like his rhyme schemes and all that, but Pac's just telling a story and he's a poet. So I think, again, it's like the easy answer because like that's kind of how a lot of people started with hip hop, those two, and they like really like brought hip hop to like the forefront. But I think they're the perfect example of like two different styles that like encapsulate what it is.
Right, for sure. Dude, I don't know what it was, but there was a couple things I was obsessed with as a kid. The first thing was wrestling. And then when I grew out of like the wrestling phase, dude, it was everything rap.
Yeah.
I was infatuated.
Yeah.
I don't fuck with any other music, country, rock, any of that. Keep it. I want rap, only rap, boom bap stuff. If you're not a lyricist, I'm not listening to you. My views have broadened since then. But,
For sure.
I think Too Short was one of the first rappers I heard, and I'm like, who is this? What is he saying?
What
Have you
is
talked
that?
about this on record?
Yeah.
And dude, one of my favorite, like my most fond memories of being a kid is back when there was CD stores, and I would just go to the CD store.
Was it Sam Goody? Was that the one?
There was definitely a Sam.
Yeah.
FYE. There was
FYE. Yeah.
a bunch of them. I forget what the early. I think the Sam Goody was an early.
Sam Goody was an early one.
But I would go in there and I would just go through CDs, and then I would end up finding one. And then I'm like, all right, Rap A Lot. Okay, I like people on Rap A Lot. So I'm going to go buy the Rap A Lot albums. And then I would do that. And I just accumulated all these CDs. And the cool thing, I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. So it's a melting pot.
Yeah.
So it's definitely influenced by the New York, Philly lyricism, but then we get everything.
Yeah.
And so I would always have these obscure albums and stuff like that. And then when I started traveling around with the military, people were like, where did you buy
What
this?
is
Where did
this?
you get this? But I remember I moved south and I started hearing Southern rappers, and I was like, this shit is trash down here. But now I like it. But Scarface is one of my favorite rappers.
Scarface, Outkast.
Yes.
Yeah, all the like
classic.
classic Southern, and it's such a different sound.
Mhm.
Like, it's not the boom bap. It's, the different beats and like the chopped and screwed. Like, that was another one where I was like, this is dumb. Like, I can't get behind this. And then you start,
You moved to Texas and you're like,
yeah, and you start kind of listening to like the small intricacies of it, and you're like, oh, okay, I can mess with this. And like the West Coast is like a super, super unique sound as well. But yeah, it's funny, like coming from the East Coast, and you're like, nah, this is what hip hop is. And then you start listening to other people, and you're like, eh. And then you slowly get to a point where you're like, I don't know, like, this is awesome.
right. So I'll tell you right now, Black Thought is hands down my number one.
Yeah.
But that dude, he's incredible.
It's insane.
He's one of the most lethal MCs I've ever.
That freestyle he had on Funk Flex, like what was it, like 7-10 minutes or something like that? It was the most insane thing.
One where is he with Method Man? There's one where
No, that was, I think that was Sway. No, he did one with Funk Flex where it was just him, and it was like 10 minutes long of just going off.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's on like another level to me.
Right. There's so many rap questions I want to ask you. So this is hard. Who's your top 5? See, that's easy. You already kind of gave them to me. If you had to pick 3 albums to listen to.
Ooh, 3 albums. Illmatic without a doubt.
Okay.
Illmatic without a doubt. That's my favorite hip hop album of all time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Nas is my favorite of all time.
Have you flip-flopped on anybody? Because I know early in life, or early in my rap fandom, didn't like Jay-Z. As I got older, loved Jay-Z.
I've always
How I ever slept on Jay-Z, I don't know how.
I've always liked Jay-Z. Someone I've kind of been back and forth on is, and it's no discredit to his skill, it's Eminem. I mean, he's had so many different sounds, and like, I mean, talk about someone who was going through crazy addiction, and when he was like going through that, like some of his albums were like, dude, this is fucked up.
Right.
He's one maybe I flip-flopped on a little bit. Lil Wayne is probably the number one.
Me, dude.
I think when people were like, oh, he's the best rapper ever, he's the best rapper alive, I was like, man, shut up.
I said the same.
And then you go back to his mixtapes and you're like, this dude is insane.
Yes.
This dude is insane. So yeah, he's definitely probably the number one that like
probably my number.
I was like, nah, I don't fuck with him, and now I'm like, nah, Weezy's the man. Like,
in the military, you have endless amounts of time on your hands, a lot of sitting around time, and so we would just get in endless debates about things, and rap would always come up. And then you have people from all different walks of life chiming in on this.
Yeah.
So the people they're throwing out, you know what I mean, are wild people that they are saying in their top 5 or this and that. But without a doubt, inevitably, everybody from the South, Wayne, greatest rapper alive. Like, you guys are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Gilly the Kid from Philly writes all his shit.
Yeah.
Writing his stuff. That was the rumor back then.
That was like the thing back then.
But I do remember looking back through some of his old albums, and there was nothing written by. It wasn't written by him back in the day, unless I'm misremembering. If I am, Wayne, I'm sorry. But when he just came out with a song with Benny the Butcher called Big Dogs.
Oh, that's
When that came out and he spit that verse, I was like, I got to go back and listen to Wayne
yeah,
because how is he this long and deep in the game?
yeah.
This deep in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still spitting like that. Like, and you go back and start listening to like I mean, he has so many, but the Can't Feel My Face with Joel Santana,
Oh yeah,
tape, like all that. I'm like, yo, Wayne was an animal.
he had the game on a chokehold for a long time,
Ever.
and yeah, I don't know why I was just like, nah,
Right.
I don't mess with him, and like now I'm like, nah, he's legit,
Right.
he's super legit.
My buddy is a huge he's a huge wait, hold on, let me think of this if I'm saying this right. He's a huge Jay fan,
Okay,
right? So he says Jay's the greatest. And initially when we had this conversation, I'm like, nah, Nas, Nas for sure. And then I'd go back and I listen to Jay-Z and I'm like, yo, like when I listen to him,
oh, Reasonable Doubt is probably another one of those albums that Reasonable Doubt is amazing,
right?
It's amazing.
And I even like the next one even more,
Mhm.
Volume 1,
Mm-hmm.
Life and Times.
The Elephant Times.
But so I sit there and I think about Jay-Z and I'm like, as I listen to him rap on those two albums, I'm like, there's nobody that could touch this dude. He's the greatest. But if you look, every time he got on a song with somebody else, he took an L. Like when he got up, like with M or when he got with Nas, and he lost his battle, and so it's like every time it got competitive, he ended up losing. So I don't know if I could say he's the best, but
Yeah, I mean for him, I think the thing that I give him is he's changed his style so many times and it's still been successful. Like even like his underground stuff before he was putting out albums, like everyone talks about is like when Jay-Z was rapping fast. Like when he was like coming up, like it was insane how fast he would rap. And then he started getting a little slower, and then like even like 444, like his most recent album, like it's just a different style.
Yeah.
And it's still been successful like every single time. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely that element of like battling and one-upping each other in hip hop, and it's tough to say he took an L against Nas because I mean, like Ether is just like you talk about like diss tracks, and like Ether is the one.
That's it.
But he had some diss tracks that were pretty good that people don't remember, but yeah, everyone remembers Ether, and it was just like, but it's amazing too that it's like he's been on tracks with people and people are like, oh, you took an L, but it's like still Jay-Z. Like him motherfucker is still the top dog.
I'm fucking little old Sean Livingston. I love
say,
Carter Cass. It's fucking Jay-Z.
Yeah.
So when I was in the Army, it was towards the end of my Army career, full-blown heroin addict at this time. Don't know if I had been in treatment or not, but Fort Hood in Texas was doing a big concert, and Fort Hood, for people that don't know, is the largest military installation in the country. So it's big. So land-wise. And so they had like an all-day thing, but Nas and some rock band were going to be the headliner.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm freaking out, like, yo, I'm going to fucking see Nas.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had a pocket full of fucking heroin balloons in my pocket. Me and my buddy went, and we're like dead center front row. I don't know why I brought the heroin party. I'm just being honest with everybody, but I had it.
You had it.
So I'm sitting there front row, and we were so close to Nas when he came out. I tapped my buddy. I'm like, we got to back up because this feels like we're two on his dick right now.
That's crazy.
Like we're too close.
Yeah.
So we went back. Nas ends up doing every song you would ever want to hear Nas
That's awesome.
do. Right? Now, when I tell you there's thousands and thousands and thousands, you have basically like all of Killeen and all of Fort Hood there.
Yeah.
And if you look back, it is just a sea of people as far as you can see. And so Nas is up on stage, DJ Green Lanterns is DJ, and he's up there and he's talking shit, and he's like, I'm not like these other rappers. I know all my shit. You can call that anything you want. What do you want to hear right now? Give it to me, I'll do it. He says that and he paused, and it was dead silent, and nobody said anything, and the only thing he hadn't done was Ether. And I was like, Ether, Ether. The whole crowd starts chanting Ether. From my buddy Freddie, we can hit him up if nobody believes me. The whole crowd starts chanting Ether, and he starts smiling. He's like, damn. He's like, I promised Jay I wouldn't do this anymore.
That's funny.
He turns around and he goes, DJ, hit him with it. And all he does that, you know how it starts off? It's like, don't on Ether.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't. And he did the chorus, and as soon as he did the chorus, They cut the mic off. He dropped it and just walked off, and everybody went nuts. And I was like,
That's
oh,
crazy.
shit, he wouldn't do the
Crazy.
verse. But that was like my big Nas moment.
Hell yeah.
Have you been to a bunch of concerts?
Man, I haven't been to a show in forever. I remember the coolest one I probably went to was I don't even know if they do them anymore. The Rock the Bells. When I was living out in California, and it was just everyone, like Charlie Tuna from Jurassic 5, Talib Kweli with High Tech, Busta Rhymes, who's like
Beast.
the coolest fucking show. And that's the thing, is like hip hop artists usually aren't the greatest live. It's tough. And
Busta Rhymes is a beast.
his energy was like unbelievable. The Roots, were there, and they're a great live show because all the instruments that they're playing and like all that, and then Black Thought just like goes off and does crazy stuff. Raekwon was there, Ghostface was there. One of the cooler ones, and again, like not a huge fan of his, but Tech Nine.
Love Tech.
Oh my God. Like I was like, this is weird. And like, he's got like that very intense following where people are wearing like the football or hockey jerseys or whatever it is, and like paint
Like
feet.
ICP.
Yeah, it's like an ICP kind of thing. And it's like weirdos. And then he comes on stage, you're like, I get it. Like this dude is like awesome. And also like kudos to him because he like did it on his own independently and like all that kind of stuff.
The biggest.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard Kevin Gates talk about Tech Nine?
No.
He did an interview and he's sitting there talking about, they were asked, I forget what they asked Kevin Gates, and he goes, you know who I want to be like? Because they might have asked him like about Jay-Z or anything. Yeah. No, I want to be like Tech Nine. And he starts talking, and he's like talking about how he went to Tech Nine. Tech Nine basically gave him like the game, like the independent, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. And he got it from ICP. So he went on tour with ICP. I read ICP's book. That's the only reason.
Oh, that's right. I did see that. Yeah.
And that's where he kind of got that whole initial following and stuff like that. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, that was like one of the more memorable hip hop shows. There's so many other like artists that like I don't remember. I too was under the influence very heavily. This was a long time ago. This was like 15 years ago. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of good shows. Dilated Peoples, I remember, was a really good show I saw once. It was funny because it was Dilated Peoples and Twista, and so Dilated Peoples went on first.
Twista live?
Not a good live show.
Really?
Not a good live show.
Probably.
He's one of those guys. I mean, he was at a stage in his career too where it's like he wasn't coming out with new stuff, and he was just one of those acts that just like put his record on and like kind of said some things here and there.
Okay.
He's also, I mean, the way he raps is like, it's probably tough to do live.
Yeah.
But that was a really good show.
Twista live.
The best show I ever saw definitely was Kendrick. It was after he released The Pimp a Butterfly, and with that tour he specifically said he wanted to play like smaller like venues. He could easily sold out stadiums, but he's like, with this album I want to play smaller venues. So there was a venue in Philly called the Trocadero. I don't think it's there anymore. But like old building in like Chinatown, and maybe fit 1,000 people, maybe. And like everyone was squeezed in there. It was unreal. Like it got so wild, especially because he played like some Good Kid, Mad City stuff. The power went out because like everyone was like going so crazy. It was just like the power went out, and like it took a minute to get it back on. But like that was probably like the best show I've ever seen.
My first concert ever was the Up in Smoke tour.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I wanted to go see Eminem, but to see all them, Snoop, Dre, Ice Cube, everybody there, that was dope. Shows now, so you were talking about Busta Rhymes when it was Busta, Wu-Tang, and who else was there? When they just came to F1.
Someone else.
Busta, Wu-Tang, and Nas.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God. Bro, Busta stole the show.
He's amazing.
He's
amazing. Like his energy is just insane.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Him and what's his name? What Black Star? No, not Black Star. Who's
Split Star.
Split Star.
Yeah, Split Star.
Them up there, like you could tell they just been doing it.
Yeah, they've just been doing it forever.
Off each other. And Wu-Tang even surprised everybody with Method Man and all that, but still Busta was the dude.
Yeah.
Shows are a little bit rough now just because of phones and everybody up with their fucking phones. if you go to a small show, like, good luck trying to see up over.
Oh, it's insane. Everyone's just
We
the whole time.
We went and saw, it was either Freddie Gibbs or Yellow Wolf in Austin. And
I love Gibbs.
I love
Gibbs is the man.
He's in my top 5 for sure. But I'm sitting there, everybody's phone's up and all this, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I see this real bright light go up, and I look over. Some dude had taken his iPad and was holding it up like that. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Everybody's up on their phones, and this dude
just iPad.
It was like a big screen he's holding up. It was just glowing everywhere. And then the one funny story I got is NF was coming to Austin, right? He was coming to Stubbs. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go see NF.
Yeah.
NF can spit.
Yeah.
And so I hit up a couple of my buddies. Everybody was down. I hit up my one other friend. He's like, oh, have fun with all the teeny boppers. And I'm like, what do you mean? NF is a beast. Like, that dude can rap. He's like, have fun with all the teeny boppers. I'm like, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. We show up. Bro, we're double the age of everybody there. I was like, holy
really?
Shit. Right. All young kids there.
Crazy.
Goddamn. One of, if not the best show I've ever seen. Performer-wise, the showmanship, the live performance, everything top-notch. Was incredible. Oh, yeah. The funniest thing about it, though, was because we were older, we were by far the biggest people there, too. So everybody's crammed in Stubbs like this, and we had a good, 8-foot radius around us. Nobody wanted to come near us.
Yeah.
So we had all the elbow room. And then everybody's underage there, so nobody's drinking.
No one's drinking.
So there's no fights. There's no...
Oh, it's the best.
It was like the best concert.
Yeah.
We just went to the Locks when they came to Austin.
I wanted to go to that show so bad.
We went. It was their 40th anniversary and all that. And so I told my buddy, I was like, "Yo, we gotta invite people. I'm not rolling in there light. Like, we're at least 6-7 deep or whatever." Bro, all the gangsters are retired now. We go in there. Right. Everybody's older. It was the most chill crowd ever. And I was like, man, if you would have went to this 20 years ago, you'd be looking around, not sure what it's gonna be. But
yeah, everyone's grown. Everyone's got kids, or just I gotta go to work tomorrow. It's kind of
clock it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's yeah, exactly.
But it's cool. To still see them doing their thing,
right?
Cool as shit.
Yeah. That versus with them and
he did
the Diplomats, that was
he did it.
Yeah,
Jada did it. I have it on my phone.
Sick.
He did it.
That's so
acapella.
Sick. Yeah.
But when I saw them do that, I was like, holy shit.
That was insane.
Jada will do something every couple of years that'll resurge his.
Oh, 100%. And he's always said it's top 5 dead or alive, and he'll do something where you're like, yeah, it makes sense. Right. That tracks. That dude is it.
For sure. Well, dude, let's say somebody's sitting at home listening. If they're still listening after we bored them with all the hip hop talk, but it's authentic to us. But you came on here, man. I can't thank you enough for the way you opened up.
Appreciate you having me.
And the willingness to talk about the stuff you're going through. But let's say there's somebody listening at home. They might work in the restaurant industry. They're going through a tough time right now. But they hear your story and it really resonates them. What would your advice be to them?
Reach out, get help. I have people DM me every now and then, and it's more of professional advice, but I always want to be an outlet for people if they're going through a tough time. I've always tried to be that, but just professional help too. But just remember, it's okay not to be okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person, or it doesn't make you a burden on anyone else if you're going through a hard time and you're going through a struggle. So just, remember that you're not alone in this. There's other people that are going through the same thing. And just reach out.
Love it. Thank you. Now, one fun question to end with. It's a little bit of a, what's that called? Not customary. When you do something always. If you do something every episode, it's what? Tradition. There you go. It's tradition. Hypothetically speaking, you're walking out tonight for the middleweight UFC championship of the world.
Okay.
What's your walkout song?
Ooh.
Mine changes on the day.
I was about to say, it depends on the day, but I need something to be a vibe. Today it might be Royce the 5'9" song Boom. I love that song. Beast. It's just a hype song.
Beast.
Yeah. I need something that would be I'm ready to fucking knock someone's head off.
Yeah. Love it.
Hell yeah.
So the way we like to wrap up the episode, I don't mean to put, I didn't prepare you for this before, but I should have told you something about it. But the way we like to wrap up the episode, if you'd be so kind, you came on here, you've told a little bit of your story and all that, but if you would be willing to throw out some I am statements, maybe take a look in your camera, but just some I am statements that are personal to you, that really help describe who you truly are. It could be anything from I am strong, I am a chef, I'm loved, I'm a bad motherfucker.